I call this meeting of Township High School District 211 Board of Education to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Barron?
Here.
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Ms. Cavill?
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Here.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Here. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item, the recommended action is that the board enter closed session to discuss minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, matter pertaining to an individual student, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. Good evening. The recommended action is that the Board of Education return to open session. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and good evening. Our next item on the agenda is our recognition. Dr. Small?
Will Director of Athletics and Activities, Eric Winkowski, please come forward and introduce us to some wonderful students tonight.
Board of Education and Dr. Small, thank you for taking some time tonight to honor some talented athletes. Tonight, we will be introducing to you our second individual state champion of the fall. So we've got that to look forward to. Athletes, as your coach introduces you, would you please step forward and stand next to the podium and receive your award? Additionally, any family members that are here at the time when your athlete is introduced, please stand so that you can be recognized also. Assisting me tonight with presentations are Palatine Athletic Director Luis Arroyo, Frem Principal Mark Langer, and Athletic Director Hamid Mariasqui, and Schaumburg Principal Brian Harlan. So we'll get started with Palatine Girls Swimming. Katie Morose. Katie Morose is a speech and language pathologist at the Higgins Education Center. After winning, I found out, 3 NCAA Division III swimming championships at Emory University, Katie has spent 7 seasons as our head boys swim coach at Palatine and is in her first year as the head girls swim coach. Katie.
First, I'd like to thank the board, Tony Medina and Luis Arroyo, for allowing me to recognize Eugene Shin this evening. I would also like to thank Eugene's parents, Sung and Sue, for their relentless support. I've had the pleasure of coaching Eugene for this season. She's an incredibly dedicated student athlete as she makes the most of every opportunity to improve and compete. This year, she was the MSL Conference Champion and IHSA State Finalist in the 100 backstroke. She bested her own school record 3 times this season as she finished 7th and second team All-State in the 100 back with a time of 55.92. We're also proud of everything Eugene has accomplished in the pool as a Palatine Pirate. Congrats to Eugene and her family.
All right, now we'll move on to Fremd High School. Andrew Cottrell has been a wellness teacher at Fremd High School since 2010. Currently, he serves as the Fremd High School Wellness Department Chair, and he has been the girls in swimming and diving coach at Fremd High School for the last 14 years. Andrew.
Thank you, Board of Education, District 211 administrators, Mr. Mariasqui and Mr. Langer. It's a pleasure to be here again to recognize these wonderful athletes to my left. Tonight, we're here to recognize some wonderful young people for their accomplishments at the state meet. Before we do that, I would ask that the parents and friends of these phenomenal athletes to please stand. Your dedication, energy, and efforts have helped make all of this possible. And I am so grateful to your support, not only to the kids, but also to the entire program. It means a great deal to all of us, and we would not be here without you. This year, after an exceptional season that included an undefeated dual meet season, an MSL conference championship, a second place finish at sectionals, and numerous new pool and varsity records, we sent 8 individuals to the state meet. The girls had to endure several different illnesses, but they pushed through, and these 6 individuals achieved state medals. Yep, come here, come here. Your award winners were, bear with me for just a moment, in the 200 medley relay, Katie Keene, Nora Nalawi, Kate Burles, and Anna Hinshaw, which took 15th place, and is an IHSA IHSA honorable mention all-state. In the 200 freestyle, Ellie Patla took 11th place, achieved IHSA honorable mention all-state, and also broke our school record. In the 50 freestyle, Katie Keene was the state champion, the first one in the history of the girls swim program here at Fremd, first team all-state, and our school record holder. In diving, Cusinet took 3rd place, achieving first team all-state. In the 100 freestyle, Katie Keene took 2nd place, achieving IHSA first team all-state and holding our school record. In the 100 breaststroke, Nora Nalawi took 10th place, achieving IHSA honorable mention all-state and is our school record holder this year. And in the 400 freestyle, Katie Keene, Ellie Patla, Anna Hinshaw, and Kate Burles took 11th place, achieving IHSA honorable mention all-state. Overall, the team finished in 10th place for only the 3rd time since 1978. My staff and I are enormously proud of these young people, and especially the legacy that these upperclassmen have left at Fremd. We look forward to coaching these underclassmen for several more years and hope to be back next year. Thank you very much.
Okay, on to Schaumburg High School swimming. Head coach Tim O'Grady is unable to attend tonight's board meeting. In his place, we have Schaumburg High School Principal Brian Harlan to present. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Winkowski. On behalf of Coach O'Grady, I'd like to thank Dr. Small and the board for the opportunity to recognize all of our amazing athletes here across the district tonight. Here with her parents, Agnieszka and Robert, is Zuzana Kresnicki. Zuzana did an exceptional job representing District 211 in Schaumburg High School this fall during the girls' swim season. The straight-A student did a wonderful job as captain for the Saxon swim and dive team. She ended her season as conference champion in the 200 free relay, sectional champion in the 50, and sectional champion in the 100 free. At the state meet, she competed in the 50 and 100 free events. She received all state honors in both events, taking 6th in the 50 and 10th in the 100 free. In both events, she broke the Schaumburg High School school records. She also achieved All-American consideration for both times in both events. Congratulations, Zuza. Thank you.
All right. And our final presenter tonight is Matt Zalewski. Matt is in his 11th year teaching and has been a member of the math department at Fremd High School for the past 5 years. In addition to coaching boys cross country, Matt also coaches the distance athletes on Fremd's track team. Matt.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Education and Dr. Small for having us here tonight to recognize these amazing athletes who have truly done an amazing job representing their schools this fall. Here today with his mother, Megan, and his grandmother, Judy, is junior Rory Gahn. This cross-country season, Rory put together one of the best individual seasons a Fremd runner has ever had. He was the MSL and sectional runner-up and a regional champion. He then went on to earn all-state honors by finishing 9th at the state meet, running a school record at Detweiler Park, covering the 3-mile course in 14 minutes and 34 seconds. He's our first all-state athlete in cross-country since 1987. But most importantly, he helped bring our team back to the state meet for the first time since 2009, and our highest team finish since 1995. Congratulations to Rory Gahn.
Of the more than 2.2 million students who annually take the Scholastic Assessment Test, the SAT, only 1% score a 1,500 or 50 or higher. Even fewer, only a few thousand of the other over 2 million students who take this test earn a perfect score of 1,600. One of them is here with us tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce Chris Grattoni, a mathematics teacher and alumni from William High School, who will tell us more about this outstanding student he will introduce.
It's an honor for me to introduce Aditya Gupta to the District 211 Board of Education for scoring a 1,600 on the SAT. Aditya is joined this evening by his parents, Kuldeep and Shipra. I would like to ask them to stand and be recognized. Thank you. I've been Aditya's math team coach for 4 years, as well as his calculus and linear algebra teacher. In addition, Aditya is well known throughout the Fremd community for his contributions to the chess team, the AI and Machine Learning Club, the Investing Club, and more. I first met Aditya when math team held its practices remotely over Zoom. Even then, Aditya stood out as someone who was passionate about mathematics and wanted to make a positive contribution to the math team. I remember wondering, who is this freshman who has the dedication and technical skills to create an entire online course designed to train students to succeed on the AMC 10 math contest? And then when I finally met Aditya in person, I remember thinking, he's a lot taller than he looks on Zoom. But all joking aside, I'm so very proud of Aditya. It's difficult to earn a 1,600 on the SAT. He's only the 16th District 211 student ever to earn this score. But for Aditya, this is just a single data point in his overall pattern of excellence. This August, Aditya gave me a copy of a book he authored and published about chess strategy. By the way, you forgot to autograph it, so you can do that. Thank you. He also published a paper in an academic journal where he demonstrated how machine learning techniques can be used in agriculture to improve crop yields. Aditya is a mischievous prankster with a heart of gold. He brings levity to every classroom and every team he's a part of. Aditya has helped his teammates become better mathletes and chess players, and he's helped me become a better coach and teacher. Aditya, I'm very proud of your achievement on the SAT, as well as your many other successes and achievements at Fremd High School. I'm excited to hear how this continues in college and your career. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to our athletes. Congratulations to Aditya. All of you are amazing young people. And it's not just the athletics that you're involved in, it's also the educational opportunities. And I'm sure each one of you is involved in many different activities. And thank you to the parents, because what you do, you support your students, you set examples for them. And it's tremendous, because look at the fine character that these young people have developed. So thank you, parents, for everything that you do. And thank you to our staff. Our staff is always learning. So there's a wonderful exchange where our students learn and our staff and people learn from one another. So I thank you very much for that. Before we let you leave, we would like to take some pictures. So what we'll do is have our students come up and take some pictures. We'll take a short break, and then we'll reconvene our meeting. All right, our next item on the agenda is going to be our public comments. But before we start with that, I'd like to read our mission statement, which is Township High School District 211 serves the needs of our diverse community by providing relevant and rigorous learning experiences, opportunities for involvement, and strong support systems that empower all students to reach their full potential. With that, we'll start into our public comments. The board welcomes you and is pleased to listen to your comments this evening. It's important that you know this is a public board meeting and not a dialogue, so the board members will not be responding to your comments or answering questions at this time. As a reminder, this board meeting is being taped and live streamed. We ask that you be respectful we ask that you value the procedures and decorum of our meeting and be respectful of those at the podium, so they may be heard. When I call your name, please come forward to the podium and state your name for the record. Though not required, you may state if you are a resident of the district. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. You will receive a notification when you have 1 minute remaining. Any individual's unused time or place in the order may not be deferred to another individual. If you wish a response from the superintendent, please leave your name and phone number with Mr. Tenneper at the end of the board table here. With that, we have our first speaker is Glenda Hodges, followed by Kathy Riesberg. Oh, to the podium, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Glenda Hodges.
Oh, can you put the microphone closer to you?
Thank you.
All right.
I am short. My name is Glenda Hodges. I want to thank each of you for the opportunity to speak tonight to address your board. I am here to represent and introduce to you Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. We were founded in 1908. We are the oldest Greek letter organization established by African American college-educated women. Two of our tenets are service to all mankind and cultivating and encouraging high scholastic and ethical standards. Our alumni chapter is located in Schaumburg, Illinois. Many of our members have or had students who attended District 211 schools. We want to be of service to our local communities. I am the chair of the Sororities Advocate for Social Justice Committee. I am also employed as a elementary substitute teacher in School District U46. Our roots run deep in this community. We are interested in the improved educational, scholastic, and emotional needs of our students. We are reaching out to continue our existing outreach and to expand our service outreach in the school district and the local community. Once again, we thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. You may want to leave your contact information with Mr. Tenneper. All right, thank you. Next is Kathy Riesberg.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Riesberg, and as a taxpayer for over 45 years in this community, I'm here tonight to wish you all the best of the holidays ahead and to share my gratitude for your willingness to listen with an open mind and an open heart and to continuously improve what is happening in our district. I'm so grateful, too, for your willingness to partner with parents, students, and the community to ensure that the physical health and safety and the social emotional wellness, and academic preparation of all students are top priorities that will allow every student in District 211 the opportunities needed to reach their true learning potential. I also want to thank you for the way that you've taken steps to encourage and support the freedom to learn and diversity, equity, and inclusion for all of our students who are all deserving of our respect, no matter the color of their skin, their faith affiliation, or gender identity or preference, and who all deserve to experience and learn the truth in every subject that is taught. And thank you, too, for all the ways you celebrate the District 211 students who've participated in various academic-related and sports competitions and who are all so deserving, as the students were tonight, of being recognized for their incredible achievements. Finally, today, on the 11th anniversary of the tragedy at Sandy Hook, when 26 lives were taken by gun violence, I want to thank you again, as I did in October, for your courageous decision to start a conversation with parents and our entire community about safe gun storage. Your decision to partner with our local police departments to share information about safe gun storage and the availability of gun locks through your school resource officers and our local police departments will be an important step forward in addressing this uniquely American public health crisis of gun violence, injuries, and deaths. I wish you all the best of the holidays and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That is it for the speakers addressing the board. The next item on the agenda is the public hearing on the proposed 2023 tax levy. There's two motions. Our first motion is going to be to open the hearing. The recommended action is that in accordance with Section 5/17-1.3 of the Illinois School Code, cash balances are reported in item 7.c of tonight's meeting agenda, and the public hearing on the proposed 2023 tax levy of Township High School District 211 is now open. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. I did not have anyone sign up to speak about the proposed tax levy. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the tax levy? Okay, if there is none, then the recommended action is that the public hearing on the proposed 2023 tax levy of Township High School District 211 is now closed. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, again, voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, that takes us to our next item on the agenda, which is our strategic plan update. Dr. Small.
Tonight, Director of Human Resources, Dr. Jim Britton, and Assistant Superintendent Kurt Teneper will present an update on the work within the strategic plan regarding our over 2,000 employees that are part of our organization here in District 211.
There are many factors that contribute to the exceptional learning experiences that students receive in District 211, but none are more important than having a staff that is highly skilled and dedicated. When we were developing the strategic plan in 2021, our highly effective staff was frequently noted as a source of pride by all stakeholder groups. Such a valuable resource deserves cultivation and nurturing, and the strategic plan contains 3 indicators that do just that. All of the strategies and targets in the strategic plan focused on our staff fall into 3 areas: staff wellness and support systems, professional development and growth, and hiring a diverse staff. So to put it more simply, what we're trying to get at here is that we want to hire the best people, train them to be highly effective, and to make sure that they find satisfaction in their work. In District 211, we are fortunate to have resources to support our staff in all position groups. So while we continue to enhance the programs and supports for our staff, a good portion of our work is to make sure that staff know about the supports that are available to them and where they can find them. This starts with our onboarding process. And while any onboarding process includes the required pieces such as filling out tax documents, signing off that you've received copies of certain policies as mandated by law, we have improved this process to also proactively talk to employees about some of the supports they will receive in their position starting on day 1 to help them adjust to their new role. Additionally, we have added more detailed information about the services available through Workplace Solutions, our employee assistance program, such as counseling, therapy, and legal or financial consultations. As employees settles into their position, it's important that they are aware of where to turn for support. For most of our non-licensed positions, employees work closely with their supervisor or other employees to learn the tasks associated with their positions. For licensed staff and administrators, the induction process is slightly more complicated. Consequently, new educators have a robust 3-year new educator program, and they are assigned a mentor to assist them during their first year. This program continues to evolve as we incorporate new strategies based on the feedback of educators who have recently completed the program. And for our administrators, we are currently developing a much more detailed orientation program than our current program. So where our new educator program has been top of the line for a while, we are now bringing our administrator mentoring program up to that same level. These will begin with operational procedures and software programs that the administrator will use, but they will also get more in-depth training on other areas such as teacher evaluation or responding in a crisis. And the last area where staff receive support is through professional development, and that is what Dr. Britton will go into more detail here with now.
Promoting the professional development and growth of our school staff is an investment in the quality of education we provide to our students. It supports the continuous improvement of practices, enhances job satisfaction, and ultimately contributes to positive outcomes both for our students and our educators. In addition, it increases our capacity to tap into the resources to build the educators of tomorrow.
There you go.
Can you hit that? These targets to formalize a system to grow our talent and improve our professional development have helped shape our efforts in the last couple of years. Educator shortages. District 211 is not experiencing severe shortages that have been widely reported across the state, not currently. While we continue to face challenges in securing an adequate number of teacher assistants and substitute teachers, we are fortunate to receive an adequate number of applicants for our licensed educator positions. While the number of overall applicants has decreased over time, especially recently, we are still able to attract qualified candidates. However, in the specific domain of teachers endorsed as English as a second language teachers, we've had to leverage some of the flexible state licensing provisions that have been instituted in the last year or so. So we are preparing to meet the challenges of the projected constricted labor market of the future for educators, while providing opportunities for our students to really discover some career pathways into education. On November 3rd, for example, 2 busloads of students went down to Illinois State University and participated in the Future Teacher Conference. That's a conference held to both inform and inspire students about the process of becoming a teacher. Also, just last spring, District 211 took the lead in hosting a Future Educators Conference, along with District 220 and 214. But in partnership with Michelle Napier, the awesome, our Director of College and Career Readiness, who really spearheaded that event, students heard directly from a lot of District 211 educators who helped energize and inspire and motivate our students to consider a career in teaching. A FREM student reacted at the end of the event and said, I was already thinking about tempering my major with some education-focused stuff, but I am now definitely going to do education now. While those inspiring events may stimulate student interest, we recognize that we need to continue to support students that are considering entering education. For a couple of years now, we have established a Developing Educators Network in District 211, a group that has generated ideas and strategies to support students entering education. As an outgrowth of these conversations, we have instituted some of the experiences I just described, and have furthered opportunities for students. For example, each school now has a student club associated with a national organization called Educator Rising that has chapters in high schools and colleges throughout the country. District 211 has also made strides in developing our college and career pathway specifically in education. We offer internship opportunities in elementary schools and our classrooms, our secondary classrooms within District 211. And we've added an Introduction to Education course, ED 201, through Harper College as a dual credit opportunity. We're also tracking our graduates, and we know that in 2023, 267 graduates indicated in an exit survey that they are interested, at least have some level of interest, in becoming secondary educators. We are also tapping into the rich talent pool of our current staff. For example, We are fortunate to have many teacher assistants that are licensed as educators. However, they haven't landed that position yet in the field in which they got their initial endorsement. So they gain valuable experience as assistants in English learner and special education classrooms, and generate skills, knowledge, and interest in becoming endorsed in those fields. So EL and special education teachers are really two of the biggest shortage areas in Illinois, and they're also priority areas for us to develop some strong educators. We support teacher assistants already licensed and trained as educators to become endorsed in these high-need areas through our tuition reimbursement program. In addition to these opportunities, we are looking to explore additional partnerships with local universities and programs to assist to assist staff who already have a bachelor's degree in acquiring their teacher license. I recently attended a symposium on teacher shortages and reviewed some licensure programs through National Louis University and Bloom Board, both of which allow staff to continue in their current positions while going to school and pursuing their teaching license, and also flexibly meeting the student teacher requirements, which are also typically a barrier for access into the teaching ranks. Our schools, they have wonderful, extensive professional development opportunities for both instructional and student services staff. Dedicated time during institute days and half days and early morning work sessions allow our instructional staff to actively participate in discussions, reflect on their practices, and develop their skills. As these activities are taking place, though, we realize that the support staff are there trying to keep the schools operating, and they don't have as many opportunities to access professional development. So we have recognized the importance of fostering their growth and development, and we have initiated and carved out time for our support staff for opportunities tailored to their roles. In the current climate of substitute teacher shortages, we acknowledge that individuals stepping into these roles may lack awareness and specific training in classroom responsibilities. As such, we're committed to addressing this gap and providing necessary support and training. So we've enhanced our onboarding process for substitute teachers, offering a much more comprehensive orientation. New subs now are gathered into small groups where I introduce them to their roles and responsibilities and provide them some helpful tips and strategies along the way. Additionally, we've expanded their access to some online training opportunities. Next week, during finals week, we will conduct our first in-person substitute professional development workshop for our substitute teachers. And during this session, LaShonda Sandiford, our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, will lead a workshop on engaging with difference. She'll assist our substitute teachers in developing strategies to effectively engage with and de-escalate situations involving students with varying backgrounds. Our strategy for professional development for support staff grew out of a collaboration with the individuals who we have aimed to support. So we brought a committee together comprised of support staff members who offered recommendations to address their specific needs. Subsequent to that, we established a partnership with Harper College Business Solutions, which has delivered tailored training to businesses and organizations throughout the area and have a network of professional instructors and facilitators. Our joint efforts led to the creation of a comprehensive plan aimed at enhancing both the soft and hard skills necessary to be successful in their roles. So during the first semester, on student half days, facilitators from Harper Business Solutions conducted sessions on conflict resolution, customer service, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The final session focused on soft skills will actually take place next week during finals week. As we look towards the second semester, that's where we'll introduce some of the hard skills. We are finalizing our plans to provide online targeted development opportunities on common software platforms used regularly by our support staff. And the training will focus on proficiency in Office products, Google products, and the efficient use of Outlook for communication and organization.
The final strategic plan indicator we will discuss tonight is diverse staff, with a strategy of increasing the percentage of racially diverse staff members. In order to hire a more diverse staff, we recognize the need to promote our open positions more broadly and recruit in ways we haven't done previously. One of these recruitment strategies was holding our own job fairs for non-licensed positions. Here you see an advertisement for the job fairs that we held last summer. Between these two job fairs, one held on the north end and one held on the south end of the district, we were able to connect with nearly 700 candidates who are interested in learning more about a career in District 211. The opportunity for FaceTime proved beneficial for both hiring managers and candidates alike, as we made significant progress in filling positions in departments that were hard hit during the pandemic. And the fruits of our labor continue to pay off. Just this week in a meeting, Director of Transportation Diana Mikelski reported that she has a bus driver starting soon who began the process to get their bus driver's permit after coming to the job fair. And so that employee will be starting very soon here with us. In order to hire a diverse staff, you must have a diverse applicant pool. So in the strategic plan, we set a goal of increasing the percentage of applicants of color to 40% of the overall pool of applicants. And when we set this goal, 35% of our applicants were applicants of color. And within 2 years, we have hit this goal. And we attribute this increase to promoting open positions better on social media, cross-posting positions on multiple platforms, and of course, the job fairs that we have had to garner interest in a career in 211. For the next 3 years of the strategic plan, our focus is to continue to build off of the successes we have had so far. Developing a diverse candidate pool is one thing, and capitalizing on this candidate pool to develop a more diverse staff is another one entirely. The strategic plan sets a goal of building a highly qualified staff that reflects the diversity of the student body and the community. According to our most recent Illinois school report card, white students represent 40% of the student body in District 211. Contrast that to our licensed staff, which is 86% white across the district. So to support this goal, behind the direction of Dr. Britton, we have created a hiring toolkit to assist those who hire licensed staff in District 211, including principals and department chairs. And while the hiring toolkit serves as a guidebook for each step of the hiring process, it has procedures to follow, legal do's and don'ts, and conducting reference checks, things like that. It also has important information about having culturally responsible hiring practices. So before the conclusion of the staffing process this year, our Human Resources Department and our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion will meet with leadership teams in each building to review strategies that promote equitable hiring practices. These discussions will build off of the great work that these teams have already accomplished. Since the inception of the strategic plan, and more specifically the goal of building a staff that resembles our student body, the racial demographics of our licensed new hires closely matches that of our student body, where our new hires, 56% of them are white compared to the rest of our staff, which is 86% white. The goal by the end of the 5-year strategic plan is to close the racial gap by 5% among our staff. There are roughly 1,000 licensed staff members, and we hire about 40 licensed staff members each year. That's only 4% of the total staff, which means that the goal of having a staff that reflects the racial diversity of our student body will take some time, but we're moving in the right direction. This chart was taken from the Illinois School Report Card, and it shows our progress. For the last decade, our licensed staff has consistently been 88% white year after year. But with intentional strategic processes, the strategic plan has been a catalyst to move the needle toward the goal of increasing the percentage of racial diversity by 5% with 3 years remaining. As with anything, things that you prioritize have the best chance of coming to fruition. We have been very intentional in our approach to staff wellness, professional development, and hiring, and the results support that. So we thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation, and we're prepared to answer any questions that you have.
Questions? Ms. Barron?
No questions. Just thank you so much for putting the presentation together and for providing some examples as well. I really enjoy those. Thank you.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes, first of all, thank you. And I do have some questions regarding the presentation. The first one I have for you is, in the presentation you talked about potentially hiring TAs because they're in the schools. And then we talk about the current licensed staff being at 88% white. Now, if we were to include those TAs, that'll probably increase the percentage. And so if we're only going to grow by 5%, I think there's still going to be a small number. So we're not going to hit the goal of being as diverse as we want to, I would imagine, looking at those numbers. And so that was more of a statement. And my question would be then, during this hiring process, we didn't really talk about training of the new employees and the TAs around equity and diversity. However, we did talk about training for some of our current employees that were subs.
Yes, I'll answer the last, address the last part first. So a lot of the training that for our licensed staff is already well established, and that has been part of their process as well. And Dr. Britton mentioned that teachers have received a lot of training through the years. This is the first time, though, that we are having more extensive professional development for our non-licensed staff. So that has been present for a while for teachers.
All right.
In terms of your second question, or first statement regarding the teacher assistants, our teacher assistants in general are much more diverse than our licensed educators. So that could be a very good pool from which to build upon.
Correct. And then again, going back to the training, will there be specific training around equity and diversity for the new hires that are coming in?
Yes, that is embedded in our new educator programming, and they are supported in their development from the moment they step into our schools.
Perfect. Thank you very much for answering the questions.
Thank you. Mr. Rosenblum?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation and sharing the information with us. I do have a few questions. So in order to increase the diversity of our staff, I'm interested in learning what efforts we're doing to broaden our sources for staff that may target a more diverse workforce and applicant pool. My theory is if you go back to the same pool year after year, you're going to get the same types of staff and candidates year after year. So I'm interested in finding out if we're doing anything to increase the schools that we're going to, maybe targeting HBUs, recruiting from other sources that can help us broaden that candidate base.
You want to address that one real quick?
Sure. An outgrowth of the pandemic is that there has been more opportunities to connect with people across the country through virtual job fairs. So we're tapping into some of those. There is a organization, the Illinois Association of School Personnel Administrators. There's a virtual job fair now that we support and attend, and like over 1,000 people from across the country. In fact, we had international people tap into that virtual job fair, and we're able to get candidates that we would have never tapped into by trying to go to a specific college and university. So those virtual opportunities are something we're trying to explore. In addition, you're right. If we do the same thing, we're gonna get the same thing. So that's why we wanted to establish, for example, a job fair and advertise that in different ways. We posted it on social media. We posted it on job boards that would tap into communities outside of what we would typically receive. So we saw a great response. Mr. Senator said we had 700 people in attendance at that, and many of them found that through platforms such as Indeed and Monster that we hadn't really used much before. We would use local newspapers, and we found that half of the people that attended that event found it through the other resources and job posting sites that we used.
I know we were pleasantly surprised with the turnout. I remember that
Yeah.
very well. I also know that there's a online system called Handshake. Perhaps you're familiar with that most colleges and universities across the country use. And I think that if we're not advertising on Handshake for our opportunities, we're missing a boat. And I also know that, that there's an opportunity for us to evaluate colleges of education and the rankings of those universities. And although, we tend to go to the same universities, I noticed, some of which, because we're getting good people from there, so we go back to, we say, where did you go to school? And they say, oh, I went here. And so we tend to go back to those same schools because we're getting good people. But I'd like us to perhaps broaden that a little bit more. And like you said, we're recognized as having really good staff. And so I think taking that recognition and the pride that we have in that and going to those universities that we may be like, oh, we can't compete against other school districts. We can compete against other school districts. And I challenge us to go to those universities that are high ranked and put ourselves in with other school districts and compete with them for top talent. I'm very pleased about the internal resources and efforts that are being done, from TAs to staff growth, and something that I remember we've talked about before, growing our own, so encouraging our students. I think there's some additional things that we can do, and we've talked about a little bit on how we can take our students, encourage them to become educators, and mentor them throughout their college experience to then help them come back. Something that I've talked about here at this board table in the past is how impressed I am when I'm walking the halls of our schools and meeting with educators, and so many of them went to school in District 211 and graduated from our own schools and have come back to educate our students. And that speaks volumes for what we do. During our equity initiative, we discussed some internal resources that would attract diverse people to our district. And I'm wondering if you could talk about maybe some of the things that were discussed during the equity conversations. I know one in particular keeps coming to my mind, that's affinity groups. And I know that there was an effort to do some affinity groups in at least one school that didn't really take off because there wasn't that much of a need or an interest, I think it was, to have affinity groups in that particular school for our staff to support the diversity that we have. So I was wondering if you could talk about some of the things that we're doing internally to attract diverse people?
So I'll start. One of the things we did last year was listen. LaShonda and I went around to all the schools and we met with our new educators of color, and said, what was the experience like for you transitioning into our district? How did you find our district? How did we find you? And grow and learn from that. We recognized that there were some barriers that we wanted to remove, such as a small thing related to our video applications created an impediment for people. So we removed some of those things. So we want to listen to those candidates that we've attracted into our district and hear how we can retain them and make sure that they are connected so that they grow into impactful educators who would then reach out to others to strengthen our pool of candidates.
Thank you very much. I think you're doing a great job, and I look forward to seeing that effort continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cavill?
Sure, I do have some questions. So the mentor that's provided the first year for new educators, is that only for a year, the official mentorship relationship, or does that last the 3 years of the whole new educator program?
Officially, it's 1 year. New educators also have a professional learning team, the department chair, informal mentors, and oftentimes what we found is that mentor-mentee bond continues beyond that first year. And there's a lot of pride in each of those people to have that connection.
Okay, great. So on slide 6, talked about the second bubble here, you annually improve the quality and scope of professional development based on emerging needs. How do you find out what those needs are?
So I think a part of that is surveying staff in terms of what they need. So specifically with this one, a lot of our licensed educator professional development starts with Mr. Shoemaker's office, and then that filters through the building. So with a non-licensed staff, Dr. Britton and I have a little bit more of a connection to that, and so it's surveying the staff to see what they need. We'll talk to some of the supervisors in those areas to say, what are you seeing that is a need of the people? And so when we look at the strands that were developed for this year with those soft skills and hard skills, those were things that came forward as a result of that.
Okay, great. Thank you. As a side note, I work at Conyers Learning Academy in District 15. It's one of our elementary feeder districts. And we had 2 Palatine High School interns in our classroom last spring,
nice.
Which was a really, really positive experience in the SIP program there. And they did say, aside from liking the program that I happen to work in, that the pizza at Palatine High School is especially good, so props to whoever's in charge of that. So my next question is, how do we evaluate the efficacy of the professional development opportunities that we provide? On the other side, I'm in a chair that goes through some of these professional development sessions. And if you talk to people on the ground, and if they're able to have an honest conversation with whoever's asking the question, some sessions are more effective than others, or more relevant to the school's situation the employee finds themselves in others. So how are we collecting data about the efficacy of the programs that we do provide our employees?
Yeah, so there's usually surveys at the end that address that, just as if you go to a conference and they ask you to evaluate that conference. The other piece of it is, since this is the first year where we are doing that with non-licensed staff, we will have to paint that with a very broad brushstroke. And then as time goes on, we'll be able to focus in more closely to things that are maybe a little bit more individualized for employees, and things that will you can start to just, funnel that down to the biggest impact areas.
Yeah. And then hopefully downstream, of course, in some of the more quantifiable professional development goals. So for example, this is a purely hypothetical, it's not based on anything District 211 is or isn't doing, but if professional development were offered on like a classroom management, strategy that's designed to, a proactive strategy that's designed to reduce, we'll call them majors and minors, incidents of disruptive behavior, for example, then downstream, one of the ways that we would measure that efficacy is whether or not it was actually relevant, whether it did what it was supposed to do, right? So do we have systems in place then to capture data when data is available on the efficacy of our professional development sessions? Besides just employee satisfaction.
So I think when we look at our licensed educator professional development, I think that is a little bit more robust, and I think that usually there is professional development that goes along with that, and then it comes back around, so they get a second experience with that, or there's some sort of a follow-up with that's in a strand that they'll revisit all year long. And so then there's opportunities that the committee who is developing that professional development has the opportunity to evaluate along the way and see how they can refine that session that will be offered next.
Okay, great. And then my last question is, one of, having been a new teacher myself, you learn a lot of things in college. It's not really possible, in my opinion, to learn very effective classroom management skills, even throughout your student teaching experience, simply because it makes a big difference to have a licensed educator standing behind you in the classroom. So that's something that, in my experience, most new teachers, certainly myself included, you have to learn as you go, and that can be one of the hardest aspects of the first couple of years of a new educator's experience. So within that 3-year program, I know the mentor relationship is likely tasked with doing some of that work, learning those strategies from an experienced person. But are there more specific supports in place for our new employees, who may or may not be experiencing what I certainly experienced as a first year teacher in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have instructional coaches at each of the buildings, and they work very closely with our new educators. As part of the new educator program, there is a review of their course syllabus to make sure that they have policies and procedures within their classrooms that will lend itself to better classroom management and management of the homework and tests and quizzes that go on in there. And then I would say the last thing is that I think the evaluators, our approach with new educators through the teacher evaluation process is that we understand that classroom management might be is the biggest thing that they need to get over in that first year. So there's a lot of emphasis put on that in what they do with the portfolios as a new educator, as well as providing that support and focusing on that through the teacher evaluations.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me. I appreciate it.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Part of the goals with the strategic plan was to increase the candidate pool application by 5% for people of color. What is the scale of that candidate pool? How many applicants are we talking about when it comes to teachers?
About 2,000, I think, when we pulled the data and then converted that into percentages, it was about 2,000 applicants for various teaching positions.
Okay, so out of that 2,000 pool, we would be hiring somewhere between 20 and 30 teachers?
About 40 per year.
40 per year, okay, because just looking at the state data, it says we have like a 97.2 retention rate. So based on the head count of teachers at a full-time equivalent of 823, we would be looking to replace 24, but 40, that's in the ballpark. My next question is, with our salary being 55, 56% higher than the state average, does that have an impact on drawing candidates to our pool?
You want to answer that one?
Sure. I mean, a consideration when you're looking at a position is the compensation. That is helpful, but I think there are many other factors that candidates consider when they're choosing to enter our district versus another district. The reputation of high quality and the services and supports we provide to our students, that resonates. People's sense of belonging and purpose and being tied in and connected to a learning community, that's also a significant factor when people are making decisions. They talk to their friends. They talk to people in the community, other educators. They talk to their professors. It's the money is a factor, but I think the human elements are also play into the decision.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes. When we started the conversation 3 years ago, equity, diversity, we had conversations about, about diversifying the staff. And one of the big things I was very vocal about is not just diversifying and getting new teachers of color inside the building, but retaining them, because that also seemed to be an issue too. I didn't hear anything presentation-wise. I'd like to know, what are we doing? Because it is two-part. Get them and retain them, and we want them to stay in this environment and flourish, and that seems to be something, part of the issue as well.
Yeah, and I think that was, we've recognized that as well, that we need to make sure that when we bring people in, make sure that they feel supported in their efforts. And, working as a teacher is a very challenging job, so we want to make sure that, that they feel that there's adequate support. And part of what Jim and LaShonda did last year was to go around and talk to candidates about those experiences, and beyond just the hiring process, their experiences as a first-year educator come through in those meetings, and they have similar meetings for new educators as a whole. And so, I think that the focus that we have within the buildings beyond that is that we want to look to see which teachers may be struggling, or their satisfaction levels might be a little bit lower, and there is definitely outreach that goes on there from the administrative teams and with department chairs to make sure that that needs are being met.
Yeah. And on the same side, we had conversations about recruiting from HBCUs or potentially extremely diverse colleges, top 50, whoever. Yeah. I don't think when Mr. Rosenberg posed that, are we moving in that direction? Is that something we've explored, or is that where are we there?
We've explored that to some extent. I think what has proven to play out more is that people are not moving across the country to become a teacher. And so, and that's why I think the grow your own approach is something where I think we'll find a little bit more success. And that's not to say that we don't reach out to more diverse educational institutions that are likely farther south than here, by and large. But, the grow your own approach is, as Mr. Rosenblum said, there's a lot of people who are 211 products, and we just have to make sure that the teachers that students see up at the front of the classroom allow them to see themselves as the person who's standing up at that classroom one day too.
Absolutely. All right, and last one. Last I looked, it was like 33% of the district is moving on to Harper. Specifically, I heard you guys mention there's a dual credit program there. Is there anything additional for we got a huge chunk of our student body going there. Is there anything in addition to further education outside of high school, outside of the dual credit? Specifically partnering with Harper.
Well, the conference that I referenced that we kind of put together.
The educational?
Yeah, was at Harper College.
Okay.
So we directly partnered with them. Everything we did was in direct collaboration with Harper and the College and Career Partnership Network. So, yeah, there is that connection that we have.
More so specifically supporting the students who, up-and-coming teachers, the students who want to become teachers that are leaving and going through graduate and post-graduation. So I understand the conference was held there, but anything specific to that? To the up-and-comers?
How do we connect to our student teachers?
Our student teachers.
In terms of bringing them back, they've gone, now they're coming back for their student teaching from different universities?
So we've tried to be much more strategic in remaining connected with our students after they leave us. Okay? In the past, they've left us, and we expect them to eventually find their way back. We recognize that we need to remain connected with them. So that's why just last year, in the exit survey, we wanted to capture who are the students out there that want to be secondary education teachers, and how can we remain connected with them. So we have growth that we can continue to tap into that resource and explore more ways to remain connected with students and invite them back in while they're college students and continue to develop them. Even though they've left our schools, they haven't left our community. And we want them to return. So we will continue to do that work and explore more opportunities.
Absolutely. Thank you for the presentation. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I thank you for the presentation, and I believe that the consensus of the board is that we do currently have a very talented and dedicated staff, and that's what we want to continue, and recruit people who really care and love the education. Also, we need to continue the support, the training, the mentoring, and as Mr. McGowan pointed out, the retention. That's really vital. And it's not just in the new teachers, it's the teachers that we currently have and making sure that we retain that talent also. It was mentioned, and I don't recall who, but listening is important. And I think maybe Mr. Britton had brought that up. We do need to get feedback from the staff, because if people can give us their honest opinions, we can really take a look at what needs to happen and how we can move forward on things. It was mentioned about classroom management. And I think not only educating our teachers, our new teachers, also the teachers that we currently have, we also have to add the parent component, because we have to possibly do more educating with our parents to get back to respect and discipline and just being able to understand people again, especially after having to deal with the COVID. And the last thing I would say is I think what we need to help our people provide, all of our staff, is a joy in what they're doing and pride. Pride of being here in District 211. And I think if we can show that to people, I think that will get more people interested in us and have more people applying for us, for our position. So again, I thank you very much, and thank you for answering all of our questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, that is going to take us to our consent agenda items. Excuse me. All right, I've received requests to have 2 items pulled. So at this time, we're going to end up with 3 motions. It's been asked that we have item G, the resolution on the PTAB pulled, and also the removal of a name from the personnel recommendations. Is there anything else that someone would like to have pulled? Okay, if not, then the recommended action is that the consent agenda, with the removal of item G, resolutions authorizing intervention in the proceedings before the State Property Tax Appeal Board, and the removal of Michael Barnard's name from the personnel recommendations, and the remaining items be approved as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. Excuse me. The next is the recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the resolutions authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State Property Tax Appeal Board, which seek assessed valuation reductions in excess of $100,000 for property tax year 2022. Dockets number 2022-33446, 2022-36118, 2022-37506, 2022-24803, 2022-24138, 2022-24740, 2022-24810, 2022-25278, 2022-24735, and 2022-26450, and further authorize Frantic as the Board of Education's legal representative to file requests to intervene in appeal proceeding forms with the Property Tax Appeal Board on the properties for which the district receives notification of appeal. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to note that some of these properties in these condominium associations are contesting improvements of less than $5,000, and I think it's punitive to send the lawyers to contest this.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
No.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. The motion carries. And that takes us to our third motion, and that recommendation is to accept the resignation of Michael Barnd effective November 29, 2023. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Abstain.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. The motion carries. All right, then that takes us to the Special Reports Freedom of Information Act. Any questions there? Okay. Then the next item is the unfinished business. It's the adoption of the tax levy. It's three motions. First motion is that the Board of Education approve the amount of $264,640,400 as the 2023 levy for Township High School District 211. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I have some comment.
Dr. Small?
Dr. Small, go ahead. Tonight, the board will act on the 2023 levy amount that has been discussed at the previous two meetings. The recommended 2023 levy amount will preserve the long-term financial stability of this district while also maintaining our strong position of financial efficiency. The recommended levy amount allows us to fulfill the board's strategic plan, including the ability to remain debt-free while also maintaining a minimum targeted fund balance and providing the capacity to sustain the quality of our comprehensive programs and excellent student opportunities for years to come. The efficiency of our District 211 operations can be found on the ISBE-generated report, indicating our operating expense per pupil. This annual report indicates that District 211, again, operates at one of the lowest cost per pupil compared to other high schools in this area.
Each year, the board is presented with a levy which allows District 211 to maintain its opportunity for students while operating efficiently. I'm going to address all three recommended actions. The Consumer Price Index, the CPIU, for the prior year was 6.5%, indicating that the general rate of inflation for most goods and services increased by 6.5% over the prior year. The district has experienced cross-cost increases in select areas of operations, including purchase services, insurance, food and supply costs, fuel, utilities, labor, and construction that are equal to or greater than the rate of inflation. While inflation is reported at 6.5% for 2023, the tax cap is 5% plus 0.3% of new property growth, which is the established allowable increase. Therefore, the first recommended action is the levy amount. The maximum property tax extension law limit, the PTAL, which is what is recommended, is 5% plus the 0.3% for new property growth. The second recommended action is to approve the resolution to reinstate the loss and cost factor, which allows the county to ensure that the full dollar amount of the levy is collected to offset any delinquencies or foreclosures. This action does not allow District 211 to receive any additional money beyond the levy that we requested in the first motion. It ensures that we receive our taxes from our new property growth. The third recommended action is to abate the full 2023 recapture real estate tax levy, the amount that has been certified by the Cook County Treasurer, and provide that amount as full tax relief to the taxpayers. This amount of the recapture levy is currently estimated at just over $2.5 million. Last year, the board took the unique position of abating the recapture levy, saving taxpayers just under $5 million. If the board does not approve this third action, the taxpayers will automatically be required to pay the district over $2.5 million in addition to the levy. It is recommended that the board again save the taxpayers an estimated $2.5 million and reject this automatic levy.
Thank you. All right, any comments? Mr. Rosenblum?
I do have some comments. Every year, this Board of Education and district are required to set and levy an amount of money to cover our school and district budget and expenses. Each year, we are required to designate the amount of this levy, and during the following year, we approve a budget using those dollars. However, we do not use all of the funds we have available, maintaining a reserve in case of an emergency. In fact, policy DCA requires that to move forward with financial planning and operational budgeting initiatives, the Board of Education should target an operating fund balance, excluding non-spendable fund balance, of approximately 33% of the next year's expenditures, representing 4 months of operations. Every year, when we consider and prepare to approve a new levy, we hear from people across our district asking about the levy and reserves, and often expressing concerns about possible increases in the levy. I have never heard from anyone supporting an increase in their taxes or our school district's tax levy. Each year, the administration presents the Board of Education with a tax levy proposal and explains as part of that proposal why we as a board should approve an increase in the levy and taxes to ourselves and our fellow residents. This includes covering expected costs and projecting long-term financial stability of the district. Property taxes are our source of more than 80% of the revenue this district receives for operational purposes. Without it, we would lose over 80% of our annual funding income. Of course, we cannot approve a zero levy. That would be like a household budgeting with zero income, living off of their savings account to cover all of their living expenses. Since I joined this board more than 6 years ago, the District 211 Board of Education has approved an increase of the maximum allowed by law in all but one of those years. We were also able to abate the levy we approved, lowering the levy amount actually charged to taxpayers after it was approved and submitted to the county clerk's office. We're experiencing record expenses in our households. Groceries, utilities, gas, services, medical care, mortgage rates, and other household obligations are reaching beyond what many people can afford. Property taxes have risen across our community. While expenses to the district are also higher, we need to look internally to control or lower expenses, identify and delay nice-to-have purchases, and work hard to increase other sources of revenue, such as grants and fundraising. I've suggested we consider a staff member at the district level to seek out and help our district get grants from local, state, federal, and other sources. Some of our neighboring districts have done this, and it has helped them fund several programs and other needs. On more than one occasion, I did not vote in favor of the proposed tax levy, and tonight is going to be one of those times. I cannot, and recommend my colleagues do not, approve the levy tonight as proposed. If we do not approve a levy tonight, we can direct Dr. Small and the administration to propose a new levy with details on reserve and budget projections, one that is lower than they have proposed now. Maybe one that is the same as our current levy amount. We can direct the administration to review all proposed expenses, find where they can reduce them by a certain percentage, and be responsive and supportive to our community and taxpayers. This is an important time in our district, and I believe we can approve a levy lower than that which has been proposed while maintaining the high level of educational programs and staff we have come to realize and expect in District 211, without going into debt or seeking additional money from the community. If we do not approve a levy tonight, we still have more than 10 days for the district administration to come back to us with a new proposal, one which we can consider and hold a special board meeting to approve, and still have it submitted to the county clerk's office before the deadline. Tonight, I ask us to do what we know we can do in support of our district and community and not approve the levy as proposed.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes.
Ms. Cavill?
When I ran for re-election this past spring, I stated my intention to keep the extra support staff that government-granted pandemic funds paid for. That extra staff includes school counselors and school social workers who provide much-needed support services for our students in the midst of a national mental health crisis. I also stated my intention to prioritize student and staff safety by carefully analyzing what investments provide the best benefits for our money in keeping everyone who walks through our doors as safe as possible. Community members heartily agreed with me. The levy tonight means keeping the extra support staff, and it means having the funds to make the important improvements in school safety I just referred to. As much as I wish it were possible to make these investments and keep these staff without actually paying for them, it's not. We maintain responsible finances by balancing the affordability of housing and what our community expects us to provide. Our community expects us to maintain safe, user-friendly facilities. They expect us to hire and retain well-qualified staff. They expect an eye-popping variety of classes and extracurricular activities. They expect our support staff to be readily available to our students. They expect competent administrators and sound academic performance, and none of that, unfortunately, is free. Every year I come to my decision about the proposed levy by weighing these expectations against the desire for taxpayers, including myself, to keep bills as low as possible. This year, I strongly believe keeping our support staff and investing in safety upgrades are very sound investments. And I will say off the cuff that if you look at the financial projections this board has been presented with multiple times leading up to this discussion, unless you are implying that the numbers are somehow wrong or untrue. You know, the finances to a certain degree will, to a large extent, speak for themselves. And I think it's very important when you're weighing nice to have versus want to have, which I readily agree with, capital improvements projects versus the ability to keep staff year after year and pay their benefits, or to make safety upgrades that aren't one-time expenses but require significant annual maintenance, that it's simply not a case of apples to apples. It's more like apples to oranges when you're talking about saving money on facilities and capital upgrades versus paying annual expenses for the things that we promised our community we would do. That's what I have to say about that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Barron?
I have had the pleasure in the last almost year that I've been here to visit our schools and talk with staff members and also talk with students. Thank you, Dr. Small, for setting up those meetings with each individual 7 of our schools. And every time that I get to hear from our staff and I ask about our support staff and how much of an impact they have made on our students, they have made a significant amount of impact on our students. And our students are recognizing that impact as well. Just last week, I was at Palatine and I asked students, you know, how is it easy to see your counselor now? And they're like, so much easier. I can like set up an appointment and I can see my counselor. And that is thanks to our support staff who are able to be that extra reinforcement in coming into situations and supporting our counselors so our counselors can continue to see our students right away. So I definitely have seen the great impact that our support staff have done and made. I have also seen the great impact that our activities have made on our students and how that has built their sense of belongingness as well, and just how happy they are to be participating in those activities and just the array of different activities that we provide our students. And like Ms. Cowell said, that is definitely not free, but they definitely have a great impact on our student development. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes, thank you. So like Michelle, I've had the opportunity to visit our schools. And recently I was on non-board visit over at the Higgins Center. And if you guys have never been to the Higgins Center, the amount of support staff that is utilized there, the number of one-on-ones for the students there, and just the upgrade in safety and security there, all has a cost to it. And so when I see that, I understand what my role is on this board to be there to help and support them.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
To clarify Mr. Rosenblum's point when he spoke to the introduction of this regarding belt tightening and the recommendation from the administration always being the entitled amount by law, this levy will be $14 million additional funds. We are sitting on an operational fund balance of around $58.6 million. Even when we projected deficits in the financial forecasts, they've come out to be surpluses. An annual average surplus for our operations is around $8 million. That's after putting in the capital improvements. That's after all the expenditures. That's even with the ESSER funds, without the ESSER funds. So unless this board sets a limit less than the entitlement, there won't be an effort for belt tightening or efficiency, and the community feels that, and they speak out because they do believe their taxes are high. And although we do have a low per capita spending amount relative to some of our neighboring districts, there are still other districts throughout the state that perform better with an even lower per capita spending. So we need to focus internally, District 211, how do we balance the needs of the community, the needs of the district, and we need to focus on what those needs are and not just defer to the state PTEL limit, which is an arbitrary law that has nothing to do with our historical revenue amounts, our historical spending, or our projected spending and revenue amounts.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, I do. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know that over our prior years, we've been below the 5% tax cap. And I know we've always worked at abating, and especially now we've abated the recapture levy, which a number of our neighboring districts and other districts have put forward to the community. We've abated that. As Dr. Small said, we're not putting that on the public for taxing. One of the things that I think we're very proud of, at least I'm very proud of it, is that we are debt-free. And I think that's really says a lot about our financial responsibilities and how we've handled our finances. One of the other things that I'm very proud of is our facilities are in very, very good shape, and we maintain them. We have districts probably in our area and, you know, in other parts of the state that are going out to referendum. They're looking to make some improvements to their school buildings. We've been able to maintain that on good planning. So we've been debt-free. So I'm very happy about that. That was a goal of a couple of prior board a few years ago of being able to do that. And as Ms. Cavill pointed out, when you take a look at the going forward, within, I think it was 5 or 6 years, looking at that, we would probably be at 33% of our fund balance, which is what we have in our policy. I think we have been very prudent. We've worked, and we have tightened our belt. We do have a couple of items that are coming up for bid here, and we're looking at the auditoriums at Hoffman Estates. We're looking at the Art Wing in Fremd. We're looking at Schaumburg at the Applied Tech. These are things that we've talked about previously, and we're putting them in here, and we need to be able to do these things before the cost goes up even higher than what it has gone up from when we talked about it previously. So at this point, I believe that going with the administration's recommendation is what we need to do at this point. I'm not certain what it's going to be like next year, and hopefully we will be below this, the tax cap.
For clarification, even though we're debt-free, I don't believe we've leveraged that to the benefit of the taxpayer. And with regarding the auditoriums, I believe our land sale funding was earmarked for that, and that should be independent of this motion to take the PTEL cap.
I don't believe that the auditoriums were, the sale of the land was just earmarked for the auditoriums. And we can debate that if you want later on.
No, I don't want to debate that. That's the impression that I believe most of the community has.
Because there were other items that would be part of that,
Correct.
that
And
pot of money.
we were able to use some ESSER funds to take care of some HVAC, and then obviously the improvements to the communication systems throughout. But all of that was within that 16 million funding.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, one further clarification. When we're really talking about belt tightening, if you're already running a very efficient operation, which District 211 is, then there's really only one realistic possibility, and that means cuts. You're cutting classes, you're cutting programs, you're cutting stipends for extracurricular activities, you're certainly cutting capital improvements, which we have previously agreed needs to have a closer look at as we watch that fund balance go down over the next 5 years, right? That's a place potentially for some savings around the fringes, but fringes is what it is. So, you know, capital improvements and not doing some of those projects, for example. And this board has seen what happens when the standing policy about class enrollment means that students feel like they can't access a class that they expected to access immediately. And that is not something our community expects of this district. We have been met with the anger that is a result of being denied the opportunities that our community feels rightly that they are entitled to. So, you know, obviously all of us have different views on this matter. Reasonable people can certainly disagree on these matters. They're complicated, you know. I know it's very tempting to wish a school district or a public institution like this could operate like a business with a profit and margin and expense balance sheet that rolls over year after year and is much more clear cut. It's not possible for us to operate that way. We're a service institution, and we're governed by a whole set of financial parameters and laws that for-profit businesses and nonprofits are not. So that's why when you see tax abatement, it can be very frustrating to watch that tax abatement take a few years to kick into effect and then watch the resulting fund balance go down, as opposed to taking a tax abatement and then everything being automatically lower the next year. And so it's frustrating, certainly, but again, I reiterate, unless you are implying that the numbers are somehow fudged or wildly off base or simply untrue, that is the projection for our fund balance over the next 5 years, which is tied to why this recommended levy is what it is. And I, for one, keep going back, I want that extra support staff. I want them to stay. I want the funds to pay for the safety upgrades that I feel our community certainly wants. And that's how we get those funds.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, I don't Madam President, I don't disagree with having reasonable headcounts and ensuring that we have adequate staffing. I do have an issue when we look at financial projections, when we look at a 5-year projection that has a fixed assumed CPI, and then inflation changes that, and we then are voting on the entitled PTEL cap versus what the projections are. If we have specific dollars associated with the cost, then I would be more inclined to accept the recommendations, but this really is just, this is the entitled amount by law, and then we will develop a budget that spends to that amount next June. And that is where our responsibility as a board is to ensure that we are not overtaxing the community while maintaining our fiduciary responsibility to the district.
Any other comments?
I thought I had some pretty good comments at the beginning of this discussion, but I will add that I am in no way in favor of reducing our support staff, reducing our programs, reducing our safety initiatives and needs, and reducing the needs that we have to operate the proper facilities and services to our students and educators. I think we have the funds. I think we have the funds. I think we would have the funds if we did not tax to the max, and that is where I stand on that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, if not,
I'll go ahead and just state for the record, the last 6 months we've had meeting after meeting in regards to the mental health crisis that came after post-COVID and the support staff that we still need in our schools to support our students. We've had an influx in EL students, and we need a lot of support there for English learning students, and we had meeting after meeting with teachers coming in talking about the support that we need. Again, these things aren't free, and one of the biggest things was the being serious about school safety and spending money to make sure we have one of the safest school districts that we can put together. And that's the reason for me anyway, is that justifies the levy this year. I can't speak for every year, but for this year, I absolutely feel like it's justified. We've had this budget, we've had time to sit and look at it, and this insinuation that the administration is just taking what they can, I don't necessarily care for, and I absolutely resent belt tightening as it pertains to my child's education. So that just for the record.
all right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, then we're ready for the roll call, please.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
No.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
No.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. The next recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the resolution reinstating the loss and cost factor for Township High School District 211 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum.
Aye.
Ms. Barron.
Aye.
Mr. McGowan.
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye, motion carries. And the third recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the resolution abating the 100% of the 2023 recapture real estate tax levy amount certified by the Cook County Treasurer due to Section 18-233 of the Property Tax Code as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just
Mr.
once.
Dabrowski.
Thank you, Madam President. Once again, we just voted to hire attorneys to go after people living in condos that pooled all their resources together to keep their legal fees down and appeal in aggregate because we couldn't see the loss of those property tax dollars. Yet we're going to abate successful contention by commercial, residential, industrial properties throughout our district and call that relief. If we want to provide relief, we should not punitively send attorneys to the PTAB boards and challenge people who are engaged in their legal entitled process with the assessor.
Any other comments or discussion?
Absolutely. I mean, we've had this conversation in regards to the district challenging anytime this is what we're referring to. Anytime there is anyone in the community who has an assessment that is greater than $100,000 is a difference. Anytime that happens, the district steps in to challenge to make sure it's accurate. Because in an event that it's not accurate, let's just say a business owner is being dishonest with their assessment or information, taxes are due. In the event that it's challenged and successful, let's say it's at exactly $100,000, who pays that $100,000? The community members. So we have to make sure we're tying all this together so people can understand the entire picture. Just saying we're going after small businesses. I believe you made that same claim last time, and one of them was like the Land Rover dealership. Like we can be reasonable, but the reality is this is something that has to be done, and it's for taxpayers. It's for taxpayers.
Dr. Small, can you maybe recap a little bit about what the recapture levy is? It's not just the PTAB. Talk about that a little bit, if you
So I'm
would.
going to have Ms. Hummel go through the specific parts, but it is, in general, legislative action, which automatically puts on an additional burden to taxpayers at this point in the levy process.
Excuse me. So there are 3 categories of property tax refunds that are calculated when using or when generating the recapture levy. It's property tax appeals, tax objection of complaints, and certificates of error, which could happen for a number of reasons. That amount over a 12-month period is successful by whatever board is reviewing those claims, and they are. It is an attempt to allow taxing bodies to recapture those tax dollars because, as we've described in the past, when those refunds are generated, they are taken off the top of the levy amount that we are putting forward. So while we request a certain amount, we do not collect that amount. So it is an opportunity. We have been continuing to budget for those refunds within our annual operating budget. What happens when that is the recapture levy is assessed is that those successful appeals are spread among all remaining taxpayers. So we have said that while we are recommending a levy this year that is within the PTEL limitation, that we would continue to provide the tax relief through that various amount.
Okay. And some of the reviews of that, the recommendations for a decrease, or the refund to a taxpayer, it could be below the $100,000. That would be part of this levy amount, or no?
I'm sorry, can you restate that?
If a homeowner does appeal their taxes, is that part of this recapture levy?
More than likely not.
Okay.
These would be, a property tax appeal board case would be anything in that over $100,000 threshold. Same with tax objection, complaint cases are the ones that go before the circuit clerk. And certificates of error could be, again, there's a whole slew of reasons that those could be generated.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Rosenblum.
Aye.
Ms. Cabell.
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Nay.
Mr. McGowan.
Aye.
Ms. Barron.
Aye.
Mr. Bradley.
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. The motion carries. All right, that will take us to new business. And the first recommended action is that the Board of Education acknowledges receipt of the June 30th, 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, which includes the financial statements as prepared by Township High School District 211 and audited by Baker Tilly US LLP, Certified Public Accountants. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Dr. Small?
In accordance with the requirements of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, the district is required to have an independent audit of its financial records, including a test of financial controls completed on an annual basis. The firm of Baker Tilly US recently completed the audit of the district's financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2023, and have issued an opinion thereon. The district's 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, referred to as the ACFR, was prepared by Baker Tilly in cooperation with our business office, including Lauren Hummel, Barb Peterson, and Sandy Imes. I am pleased to introduce to you partner Michael Malott, who is here this evening on behalf of the board's accounting firm, Baker Tilly US. Mr. Malott will present the Board of Education with a brief review of the audit this evening.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Small, and thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. I will be brief. I know you have a long meeting, but if you have any questions as I'm talking here, please don't hesitate to interrupt. So first of all, I want to thank Lauren, Barb, their team. I always want to start with that because without their professionalism, without their ability to provide us with a mountain of documentation and prepare everything that they do for us in the course of also doing their day-to-day operations while we're here, we aren't able to issue our audits in a timely and efficient fashion. They do a remarkable job of not only providing us what we need, but also really being one of the only districts in Illinois that prepares their own financial statements and their own financial results without the assistance of their auditors. Most districts we work with, we prepare a lot of the information. We make adjustments to their records to present things accurately. You don't need us to do that because you have a great, smart, capable finance team that really takes care of everything that really should be at the expectation, but in the reality is not in the school district world. So I just want to thank them for all the efforts they put in dealing with us and cleaning up after us when we're done and just being a joy to work with year over year. So tonight, there are a number of different reports that we issue as part of the audit. I'm going to go through each one really briefly, just to give you an understanding of what they are, what they represent, and what the result was from our audit. The first one, obviously, is the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, which is the complete financial results for fiscal year 23 for the district. Within that report is a whole wealth of information about what happened during the year, starting at the front with really a summarization with the transmittal letter and the management's discussion and analysis of what happened both financially and non-financially also. They're two great tandem documents to read if you just want the bullet points and the big things that happened and you need a quick read through. As you progress through the rest of the report, there's your basic financial statements and your notes that really get into what happened during the year. And then further on, it's just more granular, more detailed budgetary comparisons, things like that. In the end, you result that there's some statistical section that is long-term trend data, 10 years worth of information on a lot of different pieces of information, both from financial to demographic to some other information as well. So basically, it's high level at the beginning and gets more detailed the further you get in. Within that report, there's really only 3 pages that come from us, and that's the independent auditor's report. Long story short, this year, as we have been in prior years, we've been able to issue what's called an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance we can provide in accordance with the standards. What that means is that the information in there is presented accurately to the point where it can be relied upon by its users, both you as a governing body, residents of the community, and anybody else who needs the financial statements for whatever purposes, such as granting agencies. You can trust that the information presented in there reflects your financial health as of June 30th, 2023. Just one quick note, I don't usually get into numbers, but there's one thing just to always keep your eyes on, and that's the pension funded status. And that information can get kind of wonky because the information is always a delay from where it actually is. So for example, your Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund has been historically overfunded due to additional contributions made in the past. This year, that information, the pension fund is actually beneath the 100% funded status for the first time in a while. That's due to 2022 having a significant decline in investment values everywhere, not just in IMRF, but everywhere. You're seeing that impact in your financial statements this year in your entity-wide statements. What that means on an actual dollar basis is that your contribution rates over time will increase. It'll be a one-year blip, and it'll probably come back down because 2023 was a healthier year financially for pretty much everybody. And while we don't have final numbers yet from IMRF, kind of the expectation is right now is that there'll be some improvement in their investment portfolio, which we'll see kind of pop back up into that overfunded status. All that information goes into how IMRF determines how much the district contributes year over year for their participants in the plan. So there is a dollar actual impact to the district there. So your contribution rates are very low comparatively to other districts due to what you've done in the past, but they will go up a little bit. I think probably not till 2025, I think, is when it actually comes through. It's almost a 2-year lag. It's pretty wild, but it will eventually come back down again as well. So just something to be aware of. Some of the other plans are less impactful because the state carries 96% of the responsibility for the teacher's retirement system. So it's really just that Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund that is important to just glance at occasionally, see where you guys are at. It's healthy. It's an incredibly run plan. I mean, being 100% funded is pretty rare, or even being in the ballpark is very rare for a public pension. So it's still, despite 2022 having a decline, it's very healthy, but it will impact the district's cash obligation going forward and expenditures that will be incurred in their IMRF fund as those rates might go up a little bit over the next couple of years. Other than that, really is pretty straightforward year from a financial standpoint. There's no new crazy changes in our standards or what's presented in there, but that's just the one item I wanted to point out. In addition to the annual comprehensive financial report, there's a number of less large reports that we issue, but equally important in a lot of different ways. The first is ISB's annual financial report, which is really just a combination of regurgitating the financial results from the annual comprehensive financial report and also some compliance-related matters that we're required to look at in addition to what would normally be required in an audit. So there's not just your financial results, but certain things that are required from a statutory angle that we're required to look at. It's a wide spectrum of things that we have to look at there. But I'm glad to report that we identified no findings in those areas of compliance, and we're also able to provide a clean opinion on that report that's been submitted and accepted by ISB. Additionally, there is the single audit, which is our deep dive into federal spending. So every year, if you spend federal awards, we have to do tests of compliance, so making sure that for certain programs that we're required to look at on an annual basis, that the district is not only in compliant with all the statutory obligations and what the federal government requires every recipient to follow, but also that you have systems in place to ensure that you won't run into issues in the future, right? So it's not just whether you were compliant, but are you doing things to ensure you remain compliant? This year, we looked in particular at the Title I low-income programs, as well as the Education Stabilization Fund, so the CARES, the ESSER funding, the ARPA funding that came through, and it's obviously a large dollar value over the last couple of years. For both programs, we were able to provide you a clean opinion. We identified no issues of noncompliance or any concerns or risks associated with the controls and the systems you have in place over those programs. So a clean bill of health as it comes to those programs and your federal spending. One report that we did not issue this year and don't anticipate having to going forward is the Illinois Community College Board had a requirement in the past to issue a separate report on the adult literacy programs. This past year, they removed that requirement. They're now relying upon a separate report that I'll get into briefly to kind of be their oversight. So they're removing some of that oversight, that burden on the district to provide information for us to audit that information. So if you were used to hearing about that report in the past, you're not going to hear about it anymore. That other report that they're going to rely on is the Consolidated Year-End Financial Report, which is a requirement by a state agency called the Grant Accountability and Transparency Unit. Long story short, for all state agencies other than ISB, that's their kind of go-to, their central database to oversee any state awards they provided to local governments. So that information, again, it's another way of presenting the financial results in a different angle for different purposes. That is a report that is in progress and will be completed in January. It's always the very last thing we do, and will be done and submitted within all the timely requirements for that. So that's all the deliverable reports that are related to what you're required to be issued every year. In addition to those reports, we issued the audit results communication, which is a letter that comes from us. So all the other reports I just talked about are your information. We put an opinion on it to tell the public that can be relied upon, but it's your information, your financial data. The audit results letter is a communication from us to you as the governing body, and it covers a wide range of required communications, from what our responsibilities are for the audit, what your responsibilities are as a governing body, the audit plan and the status of the audit, and if there are any changes or concerns that arose from that, any control or system findings we had, or issues with compliance with state laws that aren't addressed somewhere else, and the many other requirements we have to look at, along with a number of other required communications that we'd have to communicate to you, basically if there's any issues that arose during the audit. The good news is the letter is boring. There is no major issues. We've had no issues with management. We've had no issues getting information we needed. We identified no instances or suspicions of fraud or of non-compliance with laws and regulations, and a number of other things that we'd be required to communicate to you if they were to arise. Again, boring is good with this letter. You don't want anything fun in that letter. That's not a good thing. So it's a nice thing to put on your bed, your nightstand, and read if you really want to fall asleep. But it is required communication to you to let you know that things went well and according to plan. In addition to that, there is a link that we include every year to our, it's called Audit Committee Resources, but it's for governing bodies, to just articles, videos, trainings, things like that. Some of it's pertinent, some of it's not. A lot of it's good to see what's out there in the wider world, if you will, from a federal granting, what are federal agencies doing. Some of it's related to education, some of it's not, but it's always worth a dive. They refresh it on an almost daily basis with new content. So there is a link in electronic version to that if you ever want to look into. Lastly, we do include some language related to planning for next year's audit, and as part of that, I also always like to remind you as governing body that while we work with Lauren and Barb on a day-to-day basis, in the end, we are hired and engaged by you as the governing body to complete the audit for the district. So if at any time, not just here today, but at any time, if you have any questions, concerns, just things you'd like to know or ask about, we are always available to you, and we want to make sure you're always aware of that. At any time, we're available to you, and we would love to hear from you if there's something you'd like to hear from us. So with that, thank you for your time.
Any questions? Okay, if not, thank you very much, and thank you to Ms. Hummel and Ms. Peterson. We truly appreciate everything that they do also. They're very extremely organized and very professional, so thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else, Dr. Small? No? All right. Then roll call, please.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. The next item is the operating fund balance for the period ending June 30th, 2023. That's an information item. Dr. Small?
The information in the ACFR allows us to bring you a standalone report detailing our fund balances as of June 30, 2023. Just as a reminder, the board had received information that last month our fund reserves dipped to 26% before the receipt of the tax money at the end of the month. The current reserves afforded us sufficient cash flow to fund our payroll and other expenses.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the 2022-2023, the popular annual financial report of Board of Education funds. It's an information item. Dr. Small?
While the ACFR includes the information required within a complete audit, we have again prepared a popular annual financial report of the PAFR to facilitate informed understanding in a different format than the CAFR. The auditors presented high praise for the quality of work by our members, and they have used our Director of Communications, Erin Holmes, and her department has taken the information from that ACFR and put it together in the PAFR. It is a colorful, fun, and easy-to-read way to see a summary of our financial report from the ACFR in a different format.
Okay, thank you. All right, that takes us to student user fee introduction. Again, it's an information item, and it'll come before us in January for action.
Madam President, if I may. Dr. Small, I was hoping just attached to this item, if you could provide the board some information about how the administration arrived at the $170 figure, and exactly what went into setting that $170 figure at $170.
we did not raise that.
This is our prior fee amount.
This is our prior fee.
Okay, so that's the only rationale? Is
There is no recommendation before the board tonight. This is
No,
just
I
showing
understand.
what our current fees are. What we
I
do.
see. So what you're saying is, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Now I understand. So this may or may not be the same thing that we're presented with in January when student user fees, when the administration presents? Is my understanding?
There will be a recommendation at the January meeting. When we assess or determine what the fee amount is, we do look at the cost of consumables and supplies that are utilized across the district to come up with that fee
Okay,
amount.
great. That was what I
That's
was-
what you were looking for?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else in regards to that? Any questions?
Yeah, I would just like to reinforce, Madam President, that the board isn't subsidizing this fee. All the board does is allocate taxpayer revenue and property tax fees, and I don't see the benefit of reinstating this fee.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, thank you. Then the next item is letter E, and that is the bid for consideration Hoffman Estates High School auditorium improvements. The recommended action is that the Board of Education award the business for auditorium improvements at Hoffman Estates High School to the lowest responsive and responsible bidders as listed below, and reject the bid for fire suppression. Number one, General Trades, RB Construction, Inc., $1,020,000. Number two, Flooring TSI Commercial Floor Covering, Inc., $165,585. Number three, Fire Suppression Nelson Fire Protection bid rejected. Number four, HVAC Acitelli Heating and Piping Contractors, Inc., $93,000. Number five, Electrical Prospect Electric Company, $870,000. Total, $2,148,585. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion, Dr. Small?
At the May 12, 2022 meeting, the Board of Education took action to approve administration to further engage its architects and engineers to prepare design and specifications for auditorium improvements in the 5 schools, and further to bid and present the project improvements to the Board of Education for consideration in future meetings over the next several years. The first agenda item are the bids for the auditorium improvements at Hoffman Estates High School, with construction scheduled to be completed in the summer of 2024. The scope of the improvements include improved ADA access for performers and spectators, new theater and stage lighting systems, replacement of existing curtains and stage flooring, new carpeting, dressing rooms, and associated HVAC equipment replacement.
Any comments or questions?
Madam President, how will the fire protection system, is it to be rebid, or will the existing system be reused?
The plan is that it would be rebid in the future. We have several years left on the seating in that. The cost was cost prohibitive because of the protection and the workaround with the existing seating. So the recommendation would be that we move forward with it when we replace that and do the work all at one time, but we have several years on that. This came in well above what was anticipated.
So there's no relocation of the fire suppression system when they come in with the HVAC for the heating and the ventilation and things like that. They'll be able to maintain that within the auditorium when they do the HVAC? There won't be future conflicts?
There currently is not a fire suppression system within our auditorium, so there's nothing that we would be working around. I'm not sure I understand the remainder of your question.
All right. I thought the auditorium had a fire suppression system currently to be within the code, but okay. Thank you. That answered my question.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. The next item is two separate motions. The recommended action is that the Board of Education award the business for art wing renovation at William Fremd High School, base bid 1, to the lowest responsive and responsible bidders as listed below. 1, General Trades Tor Construction Company, Inc., for $1,099,600. Number 2, Flooring Consolidated Flooring of Chicago, LLC, $125,907. Number 3, Fire Suppression C.L. Doucette, Inc., $42,100. Number 4, Plumbing DeFranco Plumbing, Inc., $135,186. Number 5, HVAC Helm Mechanical, $361,000. Number 6, Electrical Meany, Inc., $438,300. Total, $2,202,093. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Dr. Small.
The art department renovations at Fremd High School are also being recommended for completion in summer 2024. The art department modifications align with the recent curriculum changes and include a rework of classroom space to provide additional digital lab spaces, multi-use classroom spaces, a dedicated location for video and audio recording, and the relocation of office spaces to provide a more comprehensive workflow between classroom spaces. The new design also enhances safety and security measures for the building through modified door locations for the classrooms. New art equipment and associated HVAC equipment that is at the end of its useful life will also be included in the scope of this project.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, Madam President, I just had one. I know our in-house staff did a lot of work on our media centers. Are they supplementing any of this work?
They will be doing some work on the entrance to the auditorium, so there'll be some enhancements just to make it a little bit more of a grand entrance that they will be completing. There will also be some restoration type work within the auditorium that they will complete once the renovations are finished. But generally speaking, the contractors will be in the actual auditorium space.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, if there are none, roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. The motion carries. The next recommended action is that the Board of Education award the business for applied technology mechanical work cooling at William Fremd and Schaumburg High Schools, base bid 2, to the lowest responsive and responsible bidders as listed below. 1, General Trades Tor Construction Company, Inc., $289,600. Number 3, Fire Suppression Nelson Fire Protection, $93,030. Number 5, HVAC Helm Mechanical, $928,000. Number 6, Electrical Meany, Inc., $303,900. Total, $1,614,530. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Dr. Small?
This item details the replacement of the necessary HVAC equipment and improvement to our existing infrastructure to allow cooling to be routed to the Applied Tech instructional spaces at Schaumburg and Fremd High Schools in the summer of 2024. These classrooms are often unusable during warm months, and because of their internal temperatures, students must be moved into alternative locations and away from their equipment that they would typically use. Additionally, the significant equipment and machinery that's located in this classroom would benefit from a climate-controlled environment. The applied technology classrooms at Palatine and Conant have already been completed for their cooling systems, and the applied technology classrooms at Hoffman Estates were already cooled.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay. If not, then roll call, please.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. Next recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the superintendent or designee to enter into the site lease amendment agreement with Dish Wireless LLC to add an additional antenna to the existing tower and the addition of a new shelter located at Hoffman Estates High School. And further, that the board approve the lease payment of $2,200 per month with an annual escalation of 3% through the term of the agreement expiring March 15th, 2036. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Dr. Small?
Dish Wireless is a public utility which facilitates and operations are licensed and regulated by the FCC and the FAA. The company has submitted a proposal to enter into a sublease agreement with District 211, which will utilize the existing monopole located at Hoffman Estates High School under the lease agreement held with Crown Castle that was adopted in March 16th of 2001. Dish Wireless has already secured approval from the Village of Hoffman Estates.
Any comments or questions? Okay, if there are none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye, motion carries. The next recommended action is that the superintendent be authorized to offer professional learning opportunities for in-district credit as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion, Dr. Small?
As you heard tonight, District 211 develops and implements a variety of opportunities to support and to sustain our teacher learning in a culture of continual improvement. The in-district courses presented tonight provide an opportunity for teachers to enhance the knowledge and skills necessary to create higher levels of learning engagement and understanding for students alongside other teachers within District 211.
Any comments or questions? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. The next item, the recommended action is that the Board of Education schedule regular board meetings in the G.A. McElroy Administration Center to begin at 6:30 p.m. for the purpose of entering closed session with the public portion of the business meetings beginning at 7:30 p.m. for Thursday, July 18th, 2024, Thursday, August 15th, 2024, Thursday, September 19th, 2024, Thursday, October 17th, 2024, Thursday, November 14th, 2024, Thursday, December 12th, 2024, Thursday, January 23rd, 2025, Thursday, February 20th, 2025, Thursday, March 20th, 2025, Thursday, April 24th, 2025, Thursday, May 15th, 2025, and Thursday, June 12th, 2025. Further, that the board secretary be directed to post proper notice. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Dr. Small?
Each year, the Board of Education sets the date for the upcoming fiscal year. At the high school level, the major events calendars and building usage calendars start their development in February. By approving the dates at the beginning of the calendar year, the buildings had the ability to schedule events, if at all possible, outside of board meetings.
Okay, any questions there?
It just, we don't anticipate having a second meeting in April post-election.
We've looked at our agendas that we have typically have in terms of the amount of material that needs to be approved in April. At this point, we don't predict that we need it. Should that occur, we can certainly add an additional meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, that takes us to policies, and there's several for the first reading. Well, there's really 9 here. And these are coming to us as information items, or for discussion here first. The first one is BCBB Board Member Development. Any comments or thoughts in regards to this one?
If I may
Dr. Small?
just make a general
General
statement.
statement, please.
The next set of agenda items present a series of policy updates in relation to language updates because of either timely reviews or legislative changes. These updates are part of an ongoing policy review and development work as guided by legal updates via the Policy Reference Education Subscription Service, otherwise known as PRESS, as reviewed by the board at the September 2023 meeting. As stated, the policies are here for a first review.
All right, any questions on the first one, BCBB Board Member Development? Okay. The next one is JHCD Medication Administration in Schools. Any questions on that one right now? All right. Next is JHCB Anaphylaxis Prevention, Response, and Management Program. Any questions there? All right. Next is IGAA Student Social and Emotional Development. Any questions? All right. The next is EFB Free and Reduced Priced Food Service. Any questions there? All right. Next is ICA School Calendar. Any questions on that one? All right. The next is GBL Personnel Records. Any questions on that one? All right. Then that takes us to DIF/IGDG, Student Activities Trust and Agency and Convenience Funds Management. Any questions there? Okay. Then that takes us to the FC, Environmental Quality of Buildings and Grounds. Any questions there? All right. That's it for those. All right. The next recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the pre-approval form for future expense reimbursement for Stephen Rosenblum to attend the Ed Red Legislative Dinner Meeting on January 29th, 2024, and Anna Klemkowitz to attend the Consortium of State School Boards Association CASBA Conference February 22nd to the 25th, 2024, as submitted. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Nay.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. The motion carries. All right, the next item is potential topics for future discussion. Okay. Then
have
that-
something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Bradley.
For future discussion, is it possible to talk about potentially moving the committee reports to information if it's not pertaining to the district?
I guess I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for. If it,
So currently, we have the committee reports, and they're under their separate line item, committee reports. Is it possible to take some of those line items and move it up to information? Because a lot of the reports that we do get are based on outside sources, and it's just information, so it really doesn't impact what we do here in most cases, unless there are laws or governance that we need to be informed of.
okay. What is the feeling of the board in regards to this?
I'd like to ask a clarifying question, Madam President, if I may. So I'm thinking about, currently the way they're delivered is normally the board member liaison, or if they weren't able to attend, a member of the administration who was able to attend gives an oral report, right? And so if I'm understanding you correctly, on some of those oral reports that, and I'm not sure how this would be judged, but are information-only items. Are you looking for like a written statement instead that could then be under the information, like could be listed as an information item?
Absolutely, like the
Yes.
same recap we get and delivered
Yeah.
at the board meeting, I think it could be just as beneficial under information.
Yeah, so like asking that person to write it, in time to have it attached to the agenda
Correct,
is what you're saying.
correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood the
Yep,
request.
thank you.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Is that something that each board member is willing or able to do, other than giving an oral presentation?
Speaking for myself, I'm willing and able to do that. my only hiccup is not really what's easily surmountable, would be sometimes committee meetings happen after, we have legal notice about posting the agenda and when items can be attached, and then they can't be changed. And so if there isn't enough time to get such a statement about a meeting attached to the agenda, then I suppose the most common sense solution would be that report be moved to the next meeting.
And again, just for clarification, on the topics that are not pertinent to D211.
But
So
they
I
would
would
all
say
be
if it's so I think some items are, but a lot of it, again, is just information and resource. Now, if we're talking financial committee, if we're talking equity committee, that's D211. And again, it's just something that we could talk about for future.
All right. If we can just take a look at it, because I know we have our policy and we have the steps in the agenda. So if we can maybe take a look at this and bring it back. Is there consensus to talk about this?
I'm willing to have such a discussion.
Thanks.
So we'll put it on the agenda for next month?
I think we should be able to do it. For a discussion.
Yes.
And we'll have a little bit more information and take a look at our policy for it.
Thank you.
Okay. And I guess I would ask for one more clarification, because when I take a look at all of these, the committee reports, they all do deal with District 211, unless I'm missing something.
Well, again, directly or indirect?
To me, if
Okay.
I can just, and this would be for the discussion, but to me, it would just be simpler to say, like, I mean, this increases information accessibility too, that we would like this in a pre-prepared written statement to probably, one, streamline the time that we spend on the committee reports, and two, the side benefit of making the information more readily accessible to members of the public who are interested.
Correct.
Okay.
All right,
And
thank
we
you.
could just do it across the board, right? And then circumvent the discussion about, but, we can postpone it, so.
All right.
I'm in support of redefining our committee reports to, from oral to written.
Okay. All right, then we'll bring it back and we'll,
I think we have to go member by member to see if there's a consensus, right? For an item for future discussion, isn't that? the
yeah,
agreed
I was
upon
looking for head
methodology?
shaking. Ms. Barron?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenblum?
I'm fine with discussing it.
Okay, Ms. Cavill?
Yep.
And Mr. Dombrowski?
Support.
And Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll bring that back. All right, so that takes us to committee reports, and I will be extremely brief. You have in front of you at your table here the progress through STEP, and the STEP is Secondary Transition Experience Program. This was presented to us at NSSEO. You can browse through it on your leisure here. It talks about what our staff does at NSSEO and our own staff in District 211 as far as preparing our students, our special needs students, for job placements, looking at the vocational rehabilitation that they might need, any kind of the training, working with community members, different businesses, getting our students out there, doing everything to prepare our kids for employment, for successful employment, and giving them opportunities to be part of the community and working through the different type of job opportunities, and also possibly going on into like a junior college or into college for further training. So it's at your place. If you'd like, I can give you more information at a later time. So that is the NSSEO. The next is EdRed.
Thank you. So FYI, the Invest in Kids tax credit is scheduled to sunset at the end of the month. There is some advocacy push from people that would like it to be renewed or extended, and they're pushing because there's still 2 weeks left in the year before it expires, and they're trying to have legislators consider that. FYI, for this board, I have joined the Staff Shortages Committee of EdRed to help brainstorm, review, and make recommendations for advocacy for programs and legislation in support of combating the staff shortages that we're all experiencing, and the first meeting of that is next month. And that's it for my Ed Red report.
Okay, thank you. Community and Family Services report, Ms. Barron.
The POC Higgins Education Center Partner Agency meeting happened on November 27th. Different community partners shared upcoming events and needs in the community. Some that I wanted to highlight were the Hanover Park Library was hosting a blood drive, and I did not get the date for that. ESL Conversation drop-in classes are continuing, and then through a grant, they are offering basic computer classes in Spanish for the next 3 Saturdays. And Church of the Cross is gave away 25,000 items of clothing, and they will be working with District 211 for additional clothing projects. Their next meeting is scheduled for January 22nd.
Okay, thank you. Next is the District 211 Foundation report. As a matter of fact, we met today. Also taking a look at, we've got 2 new members that have joined the foundation, and looking at the finances that and the scholarships and all of the funding that is available, and how they can streamline and make arrangements to, and how to move forward. That's all I've got for that one. And the Illinois Association of School Boards reports. Mr. Rosenblum.
Last month, Mrs. Klimkowitz, Dr. Small, and I attended the III Conference in Chicago. There were several workshops, panels, presentations, and general sessions that we attended. Each board member has received handouts from the sessions that I attended, so please feel free to peruse those. If you have any questions or would like to meet to discuss them, please let me know, and we can schedule one-on-one time. During this year's IASB Delegate Assembly, the Assembly voted in support of the Resolutions Committee recommendations across the board, which aligned with our board's majority consensus. So everything that we said we wanted to have happen at the Delegate Assembly was successful. Mrs. Klimkowitz or Dr. Small, do you have any updates from your perspective of attending the conference?
It was a good conference. I will put my information in writing, and I'll summarize our speakers. I think one of the speakers that we had was the first general session. She was extremely motivating, and her message was, if you have a dream, work towards that dream. You can achieve that. And also talked about having somebody who believes in you and how much that means to help you move forward. I thought that was amazing.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to student wellness report. Ms. Barron or Mr. McGowan?
Yep. We had our wellness meeting last month, and it was a jam-packed meeting with really great information. Our communications team put together a video of students, and they were saying what they were grateful for, and they highlighted a lot of clubs and sports that we have in the district. So I recommend checking that video out on our social media accounts. And we also talked about nutrition. So our director of food services was there to provide some overall information on nutrition and provided an overview of our federal meal programs. They provided some our after-school snack program, more information on that, which is free to all students in Palatine High School. Our supper program, that again, it's free to all students. It's an entire meal at Hoffman Estates High School. And then our summer food services that happen in Schaumburg High School, Hoffman Estates High School, and Conant High School. They give breakfast and lunch options during the summer program, or summer breaks. Just highlighting some really cool things that are in development. There is going to be an online meal ordering at Fremd High School, where students are able to pre-order their meals ahead of time. they're going to do a pilot test there at Fremd, and then hopefully all goes well, and all our schools in our district can do pre-ordering their meals. Trying not to get too much into detail, but again, it was such a great meeting with, and just hearing some feedback from the students. Students gave their feedback on our food options, and boy, they have a lot to say. Some of the things I wanted to highlight was some of their feedback was on breakfast items. So they want to see more smoothies. They want to see more egg sandwich options. They want to see more yogurts, more healthier, heartier options. So they gave more yogurt parfaits. So those are some of the feedback that they gave. And then they also definitely let us know what they don't like, which is so great appreciated. It just helps, I guess, our food service director know kind of what to plan for. We also talked about chronic absenteeism, just as far as like what the protocol for our district is when students are missing a lot of school days. What does our communication look like to parents? And then we also talked about a sense of belonging, so getting some feedback from students on a campaign that we the communications team is working on. So a lot of really great information. Our next meeting is scheduled for April.
You mentioned something about dinners.
Yes. That is a supper program that, again, is free to all students, and it's an entire meal that students are able to get at Hoffman Estates High School.
So is it something that they take home to share with the family, or it's something that they eat right there, maybe right after an activity or something?
I understood it that they eat it there, but Dr. Small, if you can correct me if I'm
It's
wrong.
a program that, depending on the student demographics and the eligibility in that school that they would qualify for, it is a complete meal. It is typically eaten on site, and it is it has to be attached to an academic enrichment program that's offered at that school.
Palatine High School is going to be another school that has that program in January.
So is that a group of students that might be eating together then after some kind of an activity?
Any student who stays after school, as long as there's an academic enrichment program going on that day, any student who's there, if they're there for after-school activities, they can come and get the supper that they are handing out. They have the ability to eat it. There are some designated locations. I think the media center tends to be a popular space where students can eat. But they can certainly take it with them. We try and encourage them not to take it on the bus, but they can take it as they're heading toward the bus or going to whatever area of the building that they would be.
I think that that's absolutely wonderful. So, no, I'm really glad that we're able to do that. That is absolutely amazing.
It's a
Thank
great
you.
program.
Thank you. All right. Then that takes us to our upcoming events and the calendar items that's listed here. And the last item, because we do have it listed as far as closed session, I will read this, but I believe we've taken care of our business earlier. The recommended action is that the board enter closed session to discuss minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, matter pertaining to an individual student, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
No.
Mr. Bradley?
No.
Ms. Cavill?
No.
Mr. Dombrowski?
No.
Mr. McGowan? No. Mr. Rosenblum?
No.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
No, the motion carries. All right, that leaves us with some retirement requests. That the Board of Education accepts the retirement requests of James Baumgartner effective June 2025 according to the master contract of the District 211 Operations Maintenance Group. And Eric Winkowski effective December 2027, consistent with the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan? Aye. Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye, motion carries. Next is that effective March 4th, 2024, James Herron be appointed as Building and Grounds Manager at William Fremd High School at a gross salary of $107,000. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan, Mrs. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye, motion carries. And next is that effective July 1st, 2024, Kendra Letzel be appointed as 12-month Assistant Principal at Schaumburg High School at a gross salary of $152,000. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan, Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, the recommended action is that the Board of Education deny the appeal of the one-day out-of-school suspension issued to student A under board policy JGD, student suspensions as discussed in closed session, and direct the superintendent to convey the board's action to student A's parents. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McGowan, Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
No.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye, and motion carries. All right, and then, oops, got one more. That the next recommended action is that employee Sonia Natal be suspended for 7 days without pay. Further, that the board secretary notify said employee in writing of this action by the Board of Education. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan, Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye, motion carries. And with no other business to come before the board president declares this meeting of the Board of Education adjourned. It's 10:10 PM.